Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on this jam-packed Friday show, day after Game 1 of the 2024 NBA Finals. Celtics getting it done 107-89 against the Dallas Mavericks. We're going to get into that in just a second. Kind of the keys to Boston's victory. I picked the Celtics to win last night, sticking with the Mavs, obviously, to win the series in 6, but I'll detail that in just a second. Jayson Tatum, who you guys know I'm a Jayson Tatum fan, had a very odd, very, good on the boards, not terribly efficient offensively, good on the defensive end, kind of an odd, uneven game from Jayson Tatum, which we've seen a number of this season. Discuss that in about 10 to 12 minutes. Also, Kyrie Irving, who going to show some stats, in this segment, but has really struggled in Boston against the Celtics just in general over the past, 2 to 3 seasons. Get into that and why I think Kyrie is going to eventually turn it around in this series, just not in the way a lot of people think he is capable of doing. Get into that. Gilbert Arenas, who on his podcast made not just had a hot take or a crazy take or whatever, but a factually incorrect take that not to go too deep into, but I will go deep into it in the segment just right now, speaks to a larger issue with how we discuss sticking to sports in this regard. But I think a lot of subjects, get into that in about 45 minutes. And at the end of today's show, predictions for Game 2 between the Mavericks and the Celtics in the 2024 NBA Finals. EJ Savage says audio is a little lower than usual, brother. Okay, well, let's see if we can fix that during the show. EJ, I really appreciate you letting me know off the bat. You sure it's not your volume? Let's check this. Here we go. Does that sound a little better? Because this is the little volume button I use up here for the mic. EJ Savage potentially coming up in the clutch for me live on Carving It Up. This is, again, you're doing a live show. Sometimes you're gonna have some weird technical issues, but EJ, let me know, my man, if the audio sounds a little better here on the stream. But assuming that it does, we're gonna get into Boston and Dallas to start the show off. I will say though, I did pick Boston to score 112 points. They actually shorted me there with 107. But as long as I sound good on the audio, then we'll be ready to go. Full miles an hour. Okay, I just turned up my phone, and my phone sounds good on the stream there. So sounds like we're good to go. So let's go and get into the show. But first, Boston wins last night, 107-89 against the Dallas Mavericks. And listen, this was during the NFL season, I have 3 specific games that I really zero in on when it comes to predicting. One is called Bryson's Bleak Bet. One is called If I Were a Betting Man. And the last is Upset of the Week. Upset of the Week, pretty self-explanatory. If I Were a Betting Man is the one game, because I don't bet. But if I did bet, there'd be one game that I absolutely, jump in on that game and bet. Chiefs-Dolphins was my all-time. If I Were a Betting Man during the playoffs a few months ago, that obviously ended up being correct. And this one, Bryson's Bleak Bet. As I always say, it's the one game that I've absolutely zero confidence in predicting. But hey, you got to predict them all. It's the NBA Finals, man. I'm not just going to chicken out of a Game 1 pick just because I don't know what's going to happen. So I picked Boston. My gut told me Boston was going to win. It's Game 1. You don't want to go down 0-1 at home to Luka Doncic, who's playing with hot grease over the last couple of months and has in the NBA playoffs really throughout his career. Certainly this season, no question about it. Boston wins last night. I think, listen, we talk about the Porzingis performance. Kristaps Porzingis, after not playing for 38 days, was fantastic, right? Kristaps Porzingis drops 20 points in 21 minutes, 8 for 13 from the field, 2 for 4 from three-point range. I know, by the way, he decided to chip in and make us a block party. 3 blocks in, I believe it was just the first quarter alone, finished with 3 for the game. Jaylen Brown was really good last night as well. Jaylen Brown dropped 22, was the leading scorer for the Celtics. And it was kind of one of those classic Boston team efforts, right? Locking in the defensive end. Dallas's ice cold shooting from 3. We'll talk about Kyrie a little later in the show. But it was kind of the classic Boston Game 1 win. Kind of collaborative. And what I will say, I got to give credit to one guy in particular who I've been critical of, and I still need to see if he's able to do this over the course of a 7-game series against an opponent that is at least close to, if not on your level, in Dallas. Dallas obviously is the best opponent the Celtics have played throughout the playoffs and the healthiest. Is the fact that when Luka Doncic, so the Celtics go into the locker room, right? The Celtics go into the locker room at halftime. They're up by 21 points. Make sure I get this right. 21 points, right? Luka goes on this personal one-man run, cuts the lead down to 8 midway through the third. It's like, hang on a second. Game one may be one of those that comes down the wire on this big comeback. Reminiscent of what Dallas did all the way back in 2011 in their last finals appearance against Miami. Remember that game 2 in Miami where Dirk and the Mavs made that crazy run and ended up leading to them winning that series in 6? Joe Mazzulla calls the timeout. Deep breath. Luka's going to go on his runs. Luka's one of the best basketball players alive. Deep breath. And 14-0 run for Boston. Got the lead back up to 22. Drew Holiday's locking it down the defensive end. Jaylen Brown doing his thing. And again, Jayson Tatum, who we'll talk about in just a second, contributed, got a lot of offensive rebounds last night, was really active on the boards, but although an inefficient shooting performance. But what I thought was, and the reason I still feel very confident in Dallas winning this series, and I'll throw out a Luka stat that's going to back this up as the show goes on, but I think for Dallas, and again, we talk about the lackluster game 1 record. I think the Dallas Mavericks and their fans should feel good about is Boston, because of their depth, because of they have 3 guys who average 20 points per game this season: Tatum, Brown, Porzingis. You know what? Drew Holiday, who I don't think will be that good offensively in this series because of the load he has to carry defensively, guarding either Luka or Kyrie Irving. Derek White's capable of giving you 20 as well. Is the fact that Boston goes on this crazy run. Porzingis really by himself goes on this crazy run into the first quarter, right? Boston ends up winning the first quarter by 17 points. They won the game by 18 points. So they were a +1 the last 36 minutes of action. So if you're a Dallas fan, you're like, hey, this is our first finals, Luka's first finals. Kyrie hasn't played in this stage in 7 years. Nobody in this team's played in the NBA Finals. Boston played in it 2 years ago. Al Horford's been there, done that. I think Al Horford has the second most career playoff games without winning a championship to to Karl Malone. He actually passed John Stockton recently. Tatum's been there. Brown's been there. And if you're a Dallas fan, you think, okay, once we settled in, Kyrie didn't have a good game, but Luka sort of settled in, made that big run the third quarter. Luka had a solid game last night. None of the other Mavericks showed up offensively consistently. It was basically dead even for the last 36 minutes of the game. Now you could say, well, Boston took their foot off the gas. Okay, with about 4 minutes left and they took their starters out, but Boston was going full speed ahead. Jaylen Brown was getting involved in the passing lanes, as was Drew Holiday. As was Al Horford, who, by the way, on Luka Doncic, this is a shocking stat, ladies and gentlemen, when Al Horford, the oldest player in the series, was guarding Luka Doncic. You know what Luka shot from the field? 1 for 8, 0 for 4 from 3. Al Horford also blocked one of Luka's shots. Now, is that a matchup that I think is going to continue to favor the Boston Celtics? I don't. I just don't. With all due respect to Al Horford, who's been as reliable a player as there is in the NBA for a very long time, that's not a matchup that's going to continuously favor Boston. Again, Luka will make the adjustments. And as I said, coming into game 1, and part of the reason my gut told me Boston was going to win this game is the fact that Luka treats game 1s the way LeBron treats game 1s, but also how Belichick and Brady would treat first quarters in Super Bowls. Remember all those Patriots? Tom and Bill made 9 Super Bowls in 18 years. I think it was 18 years. And you always remember after the first quarter, you're like, gosh, New England can't get much going offensively. Because Bill and Tom knew in their psyche, smart football IQs, guys, it's a long game. Let's not overreact. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's see what looks that the other defensive coordinators throwing at us. Belichick, obviously, running the Patriots defense, what the other offense is throwing at us. We'll adjust on the fly. Certainly we will at halftime. Tom will find a rhythm. The Patriots defense will come up with some big plays in big key situational positions, and we'll win 6 Super Bowls in 9 tries. That's how I think Luka treats game 1s. Now, is that how Dallas treats game 1s? I don't know. Again, under Jason Kidd, they've won 2 game 1s. One of them was actually without Luka. This was Jason Kidd's first playoff game as the Mavs coach. This is 2022 first round against the Utah Jazz. Jalen Brunson, when he was on the Mavs, had a big game, had a really good series a couple of years back. And then the game 1 against the Minnesota Timberwolves, they won. That's it. But I think what would be, if you're a Mavs fan, again, something else that you should feel optimistic about is the fact, if we can show the stat right here, since 2022, and I went back that far because A, that's Luka's first deep playoff run, got to the Western Conference Finals, And because that was Jason Kidd's first run as the Mavs head coach. When coming off of a loss in the playoffs, this is what Luka Doncic does, ladies and gentlemen. All stats provided by our friends at StatMuse. All the graphics provided by my man Alfred Parsard Jr. Luka Doncic following a playoff loss since 2022 averages, 33 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, shoots almost 50% from the field, 40 from 3, and the Mavs are 9-3 with Luka Doncic following a playoff loss since 2022. So my guess is, and I'll predict game 2 at the end of today's show, but my guess is you're going to get a much more competitive game. Listen, we've seen blowout game 1s that the losing team goes on to win the series countless times. Think about 2 years ago in the finals, these same Celtics, most of the key players, against my Warriors in 2022 in Golden State. Boston is getting not necessarily smoked, but outplayed significantly by the Warriors. And then Boston goes berserk from 3, ends up winning the game, I think, by double digits over my Warriors. And Golden State still went on to win the series. You think about the 2021 finals. Phoenix blows out Milwaukee in game 1, blows out Milwaukee in game 2. Bucks went out and win the series. Think about 2016. Don't remind me, my Warriors blow out the Cavs in game 1, obliterate them in game 2, lose 4 of the next 5 games, including blowing the first 3-1 lead in finals history. So this is a very common theme, even in recent finals history, that, again, I think even Celtics fans agree. The best player in the series is Luka. And, again, do the Celtics length cause problems? You bet. Does the fact that the Mavs have 2 bigs who aren't terribly versatile in guarding the perimeter, which is why, and I tweeted about this during the game, Jason Kidd said, hey, Lively, Gafford, you saw Lively got in foul trouble. We're going to put you in the block, basically dare Al Horford to beat us from 3. And by and large, that mostly worked for the Mavericks. Al Horford, who started for Porzingis, shot 2 for 5 from 3, but was mostly missing his shots early, was kind of making them once Boston kind of pulled away toward the end of that first quarter and rode that wave for the rest of the basketball game. But for Boston, credit to them. They were the better team. Again, they are viewed as the deeper team, although I did my top 10 players in this series yesterday, which I'm going to clip up and put on YouTube. And I actually had 5 Mavs and 5 Celtics. Like it might be surprising. I had Porzingis at 6. Maybe I should move him to 5. I don't know. Maybe I should have him over Drew Holiday in this series. He's a big-time performance. So kudos to the Celtics, and I think the Mavs will come out with a much better game plan in game 2. Check the comments. EJ Savage, Boys in the Zone, who was able to help me with a little technical difficulties. EJ is a big Celtics fan. Proud of my C's, though. Got the big W. Really covered those corner threes and outlet passes by Luka. Yeah, they were quick on those closeouts on the corner because, again, Dallas, particularly Kyrie, got some great looks from 3. Credit to Boston because of their length, because of Holiday, Tatum, Brown, Porzingis, Horford, even White to a certain degree given his size, right? Able to get a hand up, make it a little tougher. Now, Dallas is capable of making those shots. We saw throughout the OKC Clippers and Timberwolves series, so that remains to be seen as well. EJ says, Tatum was actually so patient last night, not trying to force his shots early and getting his teammates going, showed a ton of maturity from him. So let's talk about Jayson Tatum, right? Because he is, to me, the ultimate wild card, the ultimate sort of what's he going to do in the series. And Kyrie Irving probably goes in that same regard. We mostly know what we're getting from Jaylen Brown. Kind of what we saw last night, right? Really good defense, some athletic plays. He dunked on the whole Mavericks team in the first half of that game. Again, active defensively, 22. He scored 22 last night, but 22 to 28-ish points. That's about where we're going to get from Jaylen Brown. It's Tatum and Luka, we know we're getting. Luka's going to be awesome because he's an awesome player. It's Tatum who we're like, okay, as I've talked about and defended Tatum ad nauseum. Tatum has some excellent playoff numbers in general. In elimination games, he's great. In game 7s, he's great. The numbers bear it out. Did a segment on it yesterday on the show. But it's in the finals where he struggled. First finals appearance against Golden State, struggled with the turnovers, was good at knocking down threes, but did not have an efficient series, shot under 40% from the field. And again, Andrew Wiggins kind of held him in check in that series as Steph led my Warriors to that title. So it's like, okay, what's he going to do in his second go-around? And you saw, obviously, the first quarter, he has 3 turnovers. He had 3 points, 3 turnovers, and again, just seemed to be a little out of sorts. And Tatum even went on to admit after the game, we don't have the soundbite, but Tatum went on to admit after the game, he was a little nervous. The nerves were kind of getting to him. The thing that I will say about Tatum, and EJ, you sort of alluded to in the comments, is the fact that The turnovers were cut down. Tatum, again, had 3 turnovers in the first quarter. Ended up finishing, how many turnovers Jayson Tatum have? Yeah, okay, he ended up having 6, but 4 over the last 3 quarters, 3 in the first quarter alone. So from a ratio standpoint, to a certain degree, right, that it went down. But Tatum realized, hey, big fella Porzingis, he's got it going. Hey, Jaylen Brown's got the momentum, right? He ends up leading the team in scoring. Let's let those guys cook. Tatum did a really good job of driving into the paint. Again, Dallas, and I was curious what Dallas was going to do. We'll see if they adjust it, where, again, Gafford, Lively, they leave Horford alone in the corner so that they still have value on the floor shot blockers, because they have no value as perimeter defenders against those stretch fives for Boston. But you keep Gafford in, you keep Lively in for shot blocking. Tatum sees that. Okay, I'm going to kick to Al Horford. Okay, I'm going to kick to Derek White, to some of my shooters out here, and knock down 3-point shots. So Tatum has always been really good at that. His assist numbers have been pretty solid in the playoffs, given that he's not, a guard. But I think that's something that was impressive to see. Moving forward in the series, because not every game's going to look like this. Boston's not just going to blow the doors off of Dallas the whole series. Tatum's going to have to be asked to hit big shots. Again, if you remember game 1 against my Warriors 2 years ago, it was Jaylen Brown. It was Derek White. It was Al Horford, who kind of, even to a degree, Marcus Smart, when he was with the Celtics, who kind of led the charge for that big game 1 comeback against Golden State, while Tatum was more of just a distributor and a rebounder. Well, that's kind of what we saw last night, because Tatum, to his credit, it's funny, Tatum looks up to Kobe Bryant. They were close. There's even some aspects of Jayson's game, just from a footwork standpoint, from just his overall game, that's like, okay, that looks a little bit like Kobe. So you can see it a little bit. But in terms of how they approach the game in certain situations, it's demonstrably different. Kobe Bryant is going to go at you all game long. Sure, Sure, he's going to dish to teammates. Most famous pass of Kobe's career was Game 7, 2010 Finals against Boston. Ron Artest hit the dagger shot to get the Lakers their 16th championship. But by and large, a game like that, like what we saw last night, Boston's up by 17. Kobe's like, hey, screw everybody. Let's win by 35. Let's double this thing up. Nothing wrong with that, because Kobe is good enough to do it on most nights. Now, it wasn't working. Maybe the other team could get back in the game. Tatum's like, hey, Luka's got it going, and nobody else does. Let's play smart. We're at home. The home crowd's into the game. We're making shots. Jaylen's dunking on people. Let's play. Again, it's a little bit, to use a football comparison, it's a little bit like a game manager to a certain degree, where Tatum's, I know I can do more. The other guys got it going. Let's defer to them. If they got it going. Because we're good enough, we're deep enough to be able to rely on some of these guys. Porzingis averaged 20 in the regular season. Derek White's a good 3-point shooter. Again, Jaylen Brown. If they have it going, let them have it going. Now in game 2, which I believe is going to be closer, I'll predict the game at the end of the show, I think is going to be a closer game. You're going to need that 25-30, I think, from Tatum in order to win. And I think, again, Dallas has, I actually threw out the stat prior to the finals. It's part of the reason I picked the Mavs to win the series, is that when both teams had their best starting fives on the floor, Dallas is the better team defensively when you look at defensive rating. So, again, could PJ Washington, could Derek Jones Jr., could they give Tatum problems? Sure, they could give Tatum problems. But I think it's, to me, Tatum's approach, and I've been on this since prior to the series. Jason Kidd, I'm curious what he does in game 2. Does he leave Gafford and Lively in the post, to essentially say, hey, Porzingis, Horford, you guys beat us from 3. And that, again, does that slow Tatum down? Does it basically say, hey, if Horford beats us, but Tatum becomes a distributor, that's our best avenue to win the series? Maybe. Because Dallas is going to come out with a better game plan. Dallas is going to hit their 3-point shots in game 2 the way they didn't in game 1, I believe. So I think that's going to be a fascinating story to watch. But again, it was kind of if I had to give Tatum a grade, I would say C+. Because he wasn't terribly efficient. We'll show Tatum's numbers, obviously 6 for 16 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3. But he had 11 rebounds and he had 5 assists. And even some of the shots Boston missed, he delivered some great passes. Some of those shots just weren't able to, obviously to go in the bucket. So I think for Tatum, better efficiency. I'm big on that. So that's why I love Steph Curry. It's why Kevin Durant's one of the greatest scorers ever. LeBron was the king of efficiency this year and most years. So that's going to be something to keep your eye on. Is if the Dallas defensive game plan is similar and the other guys for Boston may not hit their shots, then what does Tatum do? Does he say, okay, everybody get out the way, I'm going to go to work, because he's good enough to do it? I don't know. That's going to be a fascinating story to watch in this finals, is how Tatum responds to what seems to be inevitable adjustments from Boston. Because again, from Dallas, because Dallas always loses game one. Always. It's what they do. So the comments. EJ, I don't think the Mavs can play the same defense that they play against other teams. The Celtics don't have players you can help off of. Well, it's a pick your poison. Because if you keep those big guys at the post, well, you close up the lane for Tatum, although Brown seemed to kind of buck that on some occasions, but you close the lane to a degree for Tatum and Brown to really beat you inside. But you give up the open three, like you said, guys, you can't help off of on Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis. If you do play the 3-point lines, now the lane's wide open for Tatum and Brown to go to work, or for any Celtic of choice, particularly those two, because they do get a lot of their shots, or not as many as one might think. The Celtics shoot a ton of threes. So that's, yeah, and EJ says Celtics are deeper than any team that they've seen. There's no question. Again, Oklahoma City was deep, but they're very young, so you kind of sort of put them off the side. Clippers weren't deep, and Minnesota was deep in terms of guys that could throw on you defensively, but we knew, and I talked about all season long, it's part of the reason I didn't really buy into Minnesota beyond Anthony Edwards, is they're just not good. They were kind of a middle-of-the-pack offensive team in the regular season consistently. Boston, obviously, is the most difficult offensive team that the Mavs have played. But again, you look at their defensive rating when their best starting fives on the floor, it's actually better than Boston. So that's going to be something to keep your eye on for sure. So Tatum, listen, I'm a Tatum fan. I said coming into this series that I think it is a little close-minded to say, hey, if Tatum plays great, wins the finals, I'll view him the exact same way. And if for the Tatum haters, that's for the Tatum lovers. If the Tatum, I'm sorry, that's for the Tatum haters. That if Tatum plays amazing, I'll still view him the same. And for the Tatum lovers, if he plays poorly and doesn't have a good finals against sort of similar to what he did 2 years ago, same opinion of him. It's like, okay, you got to adjust your opinion a little, one way or the other. So I think he'll step it up. I still got Dallas in the series, but I think Tatum will step it up. And again, they didn't have to rely on him in game one. So he followed suit. So I can't fault him for that. All right, transition now to Kyrie Irving. So Kyrie had a rough game one against Boston. He struggled a lot against Boston. We'll get into that in just a second. But Kyrie Irving, 6 for 19 for the field, 0 for 5 from three-point range and only 12 points. And had 3 turnovers in the game, had some very uncharacteristic ones. Kyrie, who is, in my estimation, the greatest ball handler in the history of the game. With respect to my man Steph Curry, who I'm going to talk about later in the show, with respect to Allen Iverson, to Jamal Crossover, Jamal Crawford, Jamal Crossover, obviously. Throw out anybody you want. That guy's got the greatest handle I've ever seen in my life, ever. So that's, that said, for Kyrie, he was dribbling the ball off his foot. He was throwing, bad passes behind. I remember there was one pass where I think it was Derrick Jones Jr. because Kyrie's on the right wing, Derrick Jones Jr. on the opposite side of the floor, and Kyrie throws like a pass backwards that the ball is, I can't really describe in my head, but almost, bouncing in the backcourt on the first bounce on the floor. I mean, it wasn't even close to Derrick Jones. Like, even if Derrick Jones was near half court, obviously you don't want to end up getting a backcourt violation. It's like, whoa, like he seemed rattled. And he has seemed rattled ever since leaving Boston, which he did in free agency in 2019 to go to Brooklyn. He hasn't had a ton of success against the Boston Celtics, certainly in the last 11 games. If we have the stat here, what Kyrie's done against Boston, his old team, the last 11 games, it's not very good. He's averaging 20 points per game, but he's doing it on 41% shooting from the field, 27 from 3. And look at that record, 0-11 in his last 11 games against Boston. Even worse is the playoffs. If you include last night, last 4 playoff games against the Boston Celtics, Kyrie, 14 points per game, 36 from the field. Yikes, 16% from 3. And obviously an 0-4 record, which coincides, of course, with the 0-11 record overall in the last 11 games against Boston. And Kyrie, after the game, was asked about the atmospheres, what you thought you get. Obviously, when Kyrie had the ball, he'd get booed by the Boston crowd. When he was announced in the starting lineups, he was booed by the Boston crowd. And Kyrie had what I thought was kind of an interesting answer. He said that I expect a little more for the Boston crowd. It's like, feels a little bit like projecting. Like, oh, it's not really bothering me. Like, I actually thought it'd be bigger. I don't know if he's trying to egg them on. I don't know what's going on. What I will say is this. So, I think Kyrie's going to play, I don't want to say much better, but better in the series than he played last night. You can't win the series with Kyrie. I know he averaged, I think, less than 20 points per game when the Dallas Mavericks beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. But again, keep in mind, that's a very inexperienced Oklahoma City team. So that's part of the reason I picked Dallas to win that series. So you do have to factor that into the equation. Kyrie's value to me in this series, because he's not prime Kyrie anymore, even though he's had some amazing, particularly against the Timberwolves, some amazing playoff games. Even against the Clippers, I remember the one game where Dallas came all the way back from like 30-plus points down, lost game 4 to the Clippers. Kyrie was amazing in that game. But he's not going to give you that as consistently as he did in his last finals appearance, at least around that age, in 2017. When he was, 24, 25 years old, mid-20s. Now he's into his 30s. Now doesn't quite have the same athleticism. By the way, part of that's injuries. Injuries have factored in for Kyrie. He had the kneecap issue in the 2015 finals that forced him to miss the last 5 games. He's had I think he had a shoulder issue at one point. He's had some knee problems. So that has sapped him of a little bit of his explosiveness, even though he's still a supremely gifted player. To me, Kyrie's value and his worth, and one of the key, if not the key reason I picked Dallas to win this series, is I said that 4 of the 6 games would come down to the wire. There'd be 2 kind of duds. Last night was one of them. 4 games would come down to the wire, because I think there's a lot of matchups that favor both sides that they can expose. That if it comes down to the last 5 minutes of a tight basketball game, I think you would be out of your mind to not go with Luka and Kyrie over Tatum and Brown. Now, I've defended Tatum in clutch situations, given what he's done to Philadelphia in the playoffs, what he did to Milwaukee 2 years ago in the playoffs. Jaylen Brown hit a big clutch shot, obviously, against the Pacers in game 1 of the conference finals. But Luka and Kyrie have more of a reputation, and an earned reputation, of being just better players in the last 5 minutes of a basketball game. That, to me, is where he's going to find his value in this series, is that Luka's going to be Luka. Luka's going to do his thing. Again, Luka's not... If we come out of the series, Boston wins the finals, that won't shock me. If we come out of the series, Boston wins the finals, and we're talking about, man, what a dud from Luka Doncic, that will shock me. I just do not see it happening. If Kyrie can sort of be, I don't want to say an ancillary piece, but kind of a, hey, go get us a bucket every now and then. Kind of enter the fourth quarter with like 16 points, but like say 16 points on 9 shots. Right, something like that, where Kyrie has an efficient 16 to 18-ish going into the fourth quarter. And then if Luka maybe doesn't have the look he wants, hey, let's give the ball to number 11. Let him go to work, because we know he's capable of doing that. And the thing is, again, another reason for me why the Mavericks should be optimistic. Kyrie got some wide open looks last night. Like some of the shots Kyrie hit was like, how does he make that shot? Some of those turnaround fadeaways where he's hitting with 2 Celtics in his face, like he's so good, man. But in the third quarter, if you remember, when Luka goes in that one-man run, cuts the Boston lead down to 8, Kyrie had not 1 but 2 open looks. I think one that would have cut the lead to 8, another would have cut the lead, I think, to 7, if I remember correctly. On the right wing, open looks. Kyrie loves the right wing. Obviously, most painful moment of my sports rooting life was when he hit a right wing 3 over Steph Curry in game 7 of the 16 finals. So he loves that side of the floor. So I think that's going to be something that he's going to continue to take and make those shots and be more effective in the fourth quarter. Again, Dallas didn't even be effective in the fourth quarter last night because it was a blowout. They weren't coming back in that game once Boston kind of quelled their run in the third quarter. But something else for Kyrie too, because I don't think it's just as simple as he's going to make more shots. Although some of it, what's the old cliche? It's a make or miss league. The 0-11 streak against Boston. I checked that, and if I'm not mistaken, I want to make sure I'm getting this correct, because I think it will go into my larger sort of take with Kyrie and the Celtics. Kyrie Irving in his last 11 games against Boston, of which she's lost every single one. Okay? Do I have this? Against Celtics, last 11 games. 3 of them have come as a Dallas Maverick. 2 of them, one on March 1st, the other last night, have come in or post-stretch where I said, and part of the reason I bought into Dallas, because I didn't buy Dallas as a contender coming into the season. I literally said coming into the playoffs, I think Denver's the best team. Clearly, I was wrong. I thought Boston was the second best team. I thought Dallas was the third best team. I viewed them that highly. I said, Denver doesn't win the West, Dallas will. I viewed that from the beginning, go in the playoffs, you could check the tape. But once Dallas kind of changed their MO, changed their identity offensively, the stat I've given multiple times, and again, they went back in that bad habit to a degree, maybe sort of a feel out, is when Luka Doncic has a usage rate of 30% or below this season for Dallas, they're 10-0. So I think you're going to see a little bit more of that in game 2, sort of that adjustment from the Dallas Mavericks. And I think also, too, for Kyrie, that's really important is not just the change as it pertains to how Dallas runs their offense, kind of their philosophy on that side of the floor, is the fact that the Brooklyn days, 8 of those 11 losses to Boston that Kyrie has suffered, those were as a Brooklyn net. As we know, the height of Kyrie Irving's, whatever you want to call it, controversial days or polarizing days, whatever word you want to use, just about all of that came in Brooklyn. Now, so some of it came in Boston, which is why he left, right? But again, you had the vaccine thing, you had the documentary a couple of seasons ago. So like you've had a number of the Kyrie Irving drama came in Brooklyn. Since he's come to Dallas, he's kind of found himself. He's become like a leader of the Mavericks in a way that he was not in Cleveland, that he was not in Boston. Failed miserably in Boston in that regard. Was not in Brooklyn. But because he's become, I think more to a degree in touch with sort of the culture, especially on his mom's side of the family. He's been not that vocal about it, but people around him talk about how much that means to him personally. His mom passed away when he was very, very young. She was of Native American heritage. And that's something he's kind of become entrenched in. And it's given him a sense of peace that he did not have before. So I think even those things off the court, on the court, the change for the Mavericks in terms of how they run their offense gives me reason to believe that we're not going to see 3 to 5 more bad games. I mean, bad, because last night was a bad game for Kyrie. I don't think, now, do I think he's going to be 2016 Cleveland Kyrie? No, I don't. In the fourth quarter of games, can he be that? Now we got a different conversation, and that to me is where his value is going to come for Dallas. Luka's great throughout. Some of the PJ Washington, Lively Gafford, I'm not sure how much of an impact they'll have in the series, but Derek Jones, guys like that, Hardy, knocking down 3-point shots, Luka do his thing, Kyrie be a plus, a plus on the floor, be good, efficient, and then go berserk in the fourth quarter, particularly in the last 5 minutes. That to me is where his value is going to come from, and that to me is why I think we're going to see a much better sort of demeanor from Kyrie moving forward. And so that's going to be very, very interesting to see. Got some comments here. Nothing but Celtics fans in my comments today, by the way. EJ, key for the Mavs is going to be finding the right amount of defensive assertiveness from Kyrie. Too much, and he's not effective on offense. Too little, and it's hurting the team. Well, yeah, and that's, listen, Kyrie's never, we're not going to mistake him for Tony Allen, of course. That's just not where his values ever come from. But that, you are right in that regard, EJ, where, and I remember doing a segment on Luka, where the Clippers series, Luka was, listen, we can, joke about the Clippers, and there's plenty of jokes to be made at their expense. But Luka was shutting down Paul George, shutting down Kawhi when he was on the floor, and Harden, who was at least decent in the first 4 games of that series. So if you can get, again, Kyrie doesn't have to be a defensive stopper, but if he can be effective, not as Patrick Beverley would inaccurately call Chris Paul, a cone on that side of the floor, you can be good. It's kind of like what I've always said with Steph Curry. Like, Steph has gotten this, for some reason, a reputation like, man, he has a massive liability on defense. It's like, okay, Steph is never going to be an all-defense player ever, 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 even at his peak, ever. But Steph can hold his own on the defensive end of the floor, partly because he's added muscle. About to talk about Steph actually in just a second. Kyrie's kind of a similar. I don't think Kyrie's as strong pound for pound as Steph, but something he can kind of tune into that side of the floor. Because like you said, EJ, put your comment back up. You don't want him to be all in on the defensive end of the floor because you won't get what you would like to get from an offense defensively. That's going to be the key for sure. Boston Sports Summit, Tim Barnard here on the Grace, says Celtics in 3. He's very excited about that. He's very excited. He says, in all honesty, though, Luka is going to get his own, but Kyrie is still dealing with the issues of playing in Boston. He's still the same old Kyrie. That mental clarity he claims to have is a lie. Okay, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think you've seen not you, Tim, I'm the general you. I think all of us. I think it is impossible because I have been as critical as anybody of Kyrie Irving. I was really, when the whole documentary situation happened a year and a half ago, I was brutal on the guy. And I was saying, hey man, this guy's career's in jeopardy if these things continue. Not to mention he hadn't had some very good playoff performances post Cleveland. But again, this year you're seeing as little as this sounds, it's funny. I used to play, believe it or not, guys, my athletic career didn't go terribly well. It's the part of the reason I'm sitting. Excuse me, got choked on myself for a second. It's part of the reason I'm sitting in front of you today talking about sports as opposed to playing them. But when I played Little League baseball, and I'm telling you guys this, I think this really does matter. My dad coached me. Had a blast playing Little League baseball. And a lot of times, whether it was me, whether it was one of my teammates, if we were in a funk, in a slump, not playing that well, he would always be the third base coach. Like if we were batting, for example, say we were an 0-2 count or something like that, and step out of the batter's box. Okay, you kind of tense, and he'd say, like, if he was talking to me, hey Bryson, I'd turn over, look at third base, smile, man. He wouldn't say man, but smile. Like it's a game. Like enjoy it. Be in the moment. And I think that does matter. I think that's why Steph is as popular. Obviously, his ability. Come on, which Gilbert Arenas seems to deny. We're going to talk about that in just a second. We are going to talk about that in just a second. Got to defend my guy. But I think that's what draws so many people into Steph is he has this almost boyish, joy that he plays with on the floor that is like, wow, that guy is having a blast out there. Simone Biles in gymnastics is the same. Like Simone Biles has a which she's the greatest gymnast, maybe the greatest Olympian of all time, certainly the greatest gymnast. And you see it from her. You see it from, again, there's nothing wrong with being a, kind of a cold-blooded assassin. Even they smile from time to time. But I say all that to say that with Kyrie, I've seen that far, far, far more often now than I'd seen, honestly, since the Cleveland days. And that's not, by the way, that's not to excuse some of the off-court behavior, some of the leadership issues in Boston, some of the wedges he created in the locker room. But that's why I say the mental clarity, I think it's undeniable out there. Kyrie is not, check the stats. Kyrie has not played this well in the playoffs since his teammate was LeBron James. He has not. It's part of the reason LeBron said on the podcast with JJ Redick, he's like, gosh darn it, man, I'm kind of pissed that he's doing what he's doing in Dallas. Like, man, we could have kept him in Cleveland, or LeBron's like, hey, would have been nice to have him in LA. So we have not seen this level of play. And again, it's not to go into a deeper conversation, but I have talked about this before with other athletes that if this isn't right, ahead, above the shoulders, if that's not in good shape, yeah, you're just not going to be your best self on the floor. And so the fact that Kyrie has been able to come back from that, whatever that is, I don't know if it's anything in his personal life, again, beyond the things that I detailed earlier, the fact that he's moved on from that seems to be, a testament to his ability and whether it's the people in his life, therapy. I'm not sure what this, situation is for him in his personal life, but he's been able to come back from that and be a new version of himself. Kudos. I think it speaks to his emotional maturity. All right. So table finals talk for a moment. I'll predict game 2 at the end of the show. So This is going to be deep is the wrong word to use, but a look at a flaw of how we talk, we talk about sports and how there's a flaw in it that I think is, I've touched on it at times of the show. I'm going to go all in on it today. That infiltrates itself into other conversations we have. I mean, on any topic. I'm not just talking like sports, political. I mean, any topic. It could be anything. So Gilbert Arenas has a podcast, very popular podcast. And obviously Gil played in the NBA for a while, was a good player. And he was talking about, him and some of his co-hosts were talking about Allen Iverson. And by the way, AI's birthday today. So full disclosure, today is not, I am in no way, because I'm a huge AI fan. I'm not going to, this segment is not going to be, Allen Iverson overrated. None of that. AI was that dude, man. That dude. Happy birthday, AI. But he was saying, hey, AI, Steph, because he had one of his co-hosts that was saying, hey, come on, man. You see the attention Steph gets on the floor? And Gilbert Arenas was adamant. You know, the difference between those two, because of AI's speed, and AI had incredible speed, by the way, AI commanded quadruple teams. Steph doesn't command quadruple teams. Are you out of your mind? I apologize for those that are listening to the podcast as opposed to watching it. We can show you why Gilbert is objectively incorrect. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. That is by definition a quadruple team on Mr. Steph Curry. Let's see. Do we have anything else? That looks like a triple team by the Toronto Raptors onto Steph Curry. That looks like a triple team on Steph Curry. That's 3 Portland Trailblazers. Remember this play, guys? Remember where Steph dribbled all around the Clippers and made that crazy 3 in his MVP season? That's 1, 2, 3 Clippers. Yep, that's 3. How about this one? That's against the Cavs. Looks like Jordan Clarkson, Kyle Korver, and Larry Nance Jr. That's 3 Cleveland defenders. How about this one? That is 1, 2, 3 Raptors defenders. Siakam, Gasol, and Kyle Lowry. Do we have any more? Oh, it looks like we do. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a quadruple team that Gilbert Arenas says doesn't exist for Steph Curry. That's 4 Oklahoma City Thunder on Steph. Let's look at this one. That is 1, 2, 3 Memphis Grizzlies, literally sandwiching Steph Curry, literally sandwiching him, in threes as he's trying to make a layup. That's a quadruple team as well. That looks like it is Kawhi Leonard, Nick Batum, and Paul George defending him. And let's look at this last one. Actually, let's look at this one right here. That's 1, 2, 3 Cavs defenders. No, my bad. That's 4 Cavs defenders. That is J.R. Smith, Tristan Thompson, LeBron James, Amon Shumpert, all guarding Steph Curry. That is by definition a quadruple team. And finally, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm new to this basketball thing. I'm pretty sure you're only allowed to have 5 players on the floor. So that's 5. So that means literally every single Boston Celtic right there is guarding Steph. That is not a quadruple team. That is, I believe, a quintuple team onto Steph Curry. So Gilbert Arenas is, of course, dead wrong. And I'm starting to question whether he watches Steph play. But this goes to, so Gilbert Arenas is a very popular podcast. Gilbert Arenas, I imagine, prides himself as a guy who keeps it real, shoots the you-know-what, discussing basketball. And there are certain, I imagine Gilbert Arenas is a guy who wants to be taken seriously, taken credibly as a basketball analyst. Who the heck doesn't want to be taken seriously in their field? Of course, the last thing you want to have is to walk into a room with your peers or with people who are seeking advice from you or in a position to at least, and be like, oh gosh, here's this guy. Oh boy. Respect is one of the most valuable things a person can possibly attain in life. And credibility certainly isn't far behind. I'd argue credibility falls under the respect umbrella. I genuinely, I say this as honestly as I can. I cannot from here on out take Gilbert Arenas seriously when it comes to analyzing basketball. It's not that he was wrong. I'm wrong. Many of us are wrong. We all are, I guess. It's the fact that despite overwhelming evidence, as I just detailed right here. He was adamantly wrong. So think about this. Overwhelming evidence to the contrary of what his opinion is, and he's adamant, no, this is true. It's like, dude, no, it isn't. It's just objectively false. And it kind of goes to something, yeah, we see it in politics, but we see it in every discussion, in any subject. If you want to maintain credibility, you can have a different opinion from somebody. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's okay with having a different opinion from somebody. It's preferable you have some facts on your side to back it up, right? But there's some opinions that if you want to maintain credibility, you are allowed to have. So I talked about Monday's show with the Trump thing. We'll relitigate that. It's on YouTube. You can check it out for yourselves if you want. But I have studied presidential history longer than I've been a fan of professional and college sports. That's the God's honest truth. I dig that stuff up, eat that stuff up. But if I came on this show, on somebody else's show, if I had just a regular, average, everyday discussion with somebody and they were talking about presidents, they said, hey, Bryson, who do you think is the greatest president in American history? I said, you know what? You're not going to believe this. Calvin Coolidge. Now, that guy, if you really look at it, is the greatest president in the history of America. Now, Calvin Coolidge wasn't a bad president. I don't think he was a great president. He was fine. He was okay. I should never be taken seriously to discuss presidents ever again. Like, to me, it's an obvious two-way battle. It's Lincoln or Washington. So it is. You can throw in maybe a Jefferson, either of the Roosevelts. I guess my good buddy Isaac Lawson, when we did a series literally on U.S. presidents, had, I think, Dwight D. Eisenhower like into the top 3 or 4. So, like, there are cases, slim ones, but cases you can make for some of these individuals. But some, it's like, no, they just weren't. It's just not true. For Gilbert Arenas to claim this, it is I think because his audience is so big, I think this guy has an obligation to his audience and to anybody he talks basketball with. And it's unfortunate given that he had a pretty solid NBA career. Off-court stuff, yeah, but by and large, decent NBA career. I think he has an obligation to say to the audience, when you listen to my basketball analysis, understand that a portion of it comes from a universe, from a reality that the rest of you guys don't reside in. It's okay to have differing opinions. By the way, listen, my show is not a debate show. It's usually just me. Sometimes I'll have a guest on to talk about whatever's going on in sports, but it's usually just me. I would love to be a part of a debate show, right? Like that's something that I enjoy doing. Like, healthy, good conversation about basically anything that I am moderately interested in. Certainly sports would be pretty darn high on that list. But when you come to the table and say something that is by a literal, get your phones out right now, preferably while you're still on the show, and Google Steph Curry quadruple team or Steph Curry triple team. You'll find a litany of images on Google. It's, to me, if you have an opinion that is easily, you can go on your phone, go on your tablet, computer, whatever you're on, and Google, blankety blank X, whatever. Type it in, and you get an answer that is overwhelmingly backed by data and evidence that supports the contrary. I'm sorry, I can't take you seriously. It's one thing, I picked the Dallas Mavericks to win this series. Chances are I could be wrong. Dallas is an underdog. That's different. That's a predicting the future. That's Kyrie Irving, by the way. Kyrie Irving is the guy who I was like, yeah, you cannot win with this guy moving forward, given the situations in Boston and Brooklyn. Oh, hang on a second. His team's in the final. I was wrong on that. He did some personal work on himself. The situation in Dallas fits his skill set, maybe better than other destinations did. Okay, I was wrong on that. I was wrong. A simple Google search will show you, well, Kyrie Irving was an instrumental piece in getting another team to the finals. Probably wrong on that one. It's not just admitting you're wrong. It's not just, sometimes listen, I am the ultimate. Listen, I will always admit when I'm wrong. but not after holding on for dear life to a strong take that I have that I'm like, it looks like I may be trending in the incorrect direction, but I hang on just in case until it's like, okay, I'm going to have to give this one up. But I think it's like if somebody claimed, best quarterback in the NFL, it's Derek Carr. Okay, I can't take you seriously. I'm sorry. We can't discuss it. I think there's a Keanu Reeves quote. I think it's Keanu Reeves, who's one of the most well-liked humans in the country. Everybody loves Keanu Reeves. But he had a quote. I think it was something along the lines of, if you say 1 + 1 = 7, I say good for you. It's like, okay, I'm not even going to engage in this. Like it's just a waste of my time. I've got better things to do with my day. And it's just hearing this from Gilbert. He's entitled to his opinion because everybody's entitled to their opinion. But it's this adamant, I will not move off my position, despite the fact that the Google search I just talked about and the overwhelming evidence suggests, yeah, I am dead wrong on this, and I still will not move off my position. That to me is the biggest, because it's no secret there's a lot of division in this country. That goes without saying. That to me is the biggest barrier, is that we can't seem to agree on a basic set of facts. In this case, again, with Gilbert Arenas. There's nothing wrong. Matter of fact, I think it's what makes this country and what makes society in general great is differing opinions. As long as your opinion does not involve someone getting threatened, like anti-Semitism, racism, as long as your opinion isn't hateful towards an entire people group, right? Like that's, to me, I'm like, okay, beyond that, I'm always down for similar opinions, differing opinions. Let's talk this thing out. Let's have a conversation. Let's see if we can not even agree with one another, but see if we can find an understanding of one another's positions. You can't get there if you don't argue on the most basic set of facts. And a sports debate is not that important in the scheme of life. I love them. I enjoy sports debates, but a lot of people do. But it's not life or death. But if we want to get towards a more civil coexistence with one another, what you saw, I think, from Gilbert Arenas on this podcast when discussing Steph Curry is a representation of the biggest barrier we have to get there. I love debating, discussing. There's a lot of folks out there that do. But if you are unwilling to move off your position despite overwhelming evidence, I'm not sure where you can go from there. Not to sound all doom and gloom here, but I think those things do matter. Let's see. Oh, wow. Okay. Jeff is in the comments. Bryson, don't know if you already brought it up, but I definitely think now after game one, it's clear. Jaylen Brown is the best player on the Celtics. I can't go there. Jaylen Brown was the best Celtic on the floor. With all due respect to Porzingis, of course, here's the thing. Let's put it this way. I think Jaylen Brown was the best Celtic. I think Porzingis was the most valuable Celtic because obviously it's a nip and tuck game in the first quarter. Porzingis comes in and he can't miss from the perimeter and is swatting Boston Celtics shots into space. But that's how I view it. But as far as Tatum, listen, this is a guy who, again, the Celtics don't get to the finals in 2022 if he doesn't go insane against Milwaukee in Game 6. And by the way, I think he had a 30-point Game 7 against Miami in that series where Jimmy Butler almost stole that one for Miami, for the Heat. Jayson Tatum, the Celtics don't advance past Philadelphia, don't get past the second round last year. What would have been a massive disappointment if Tatum doesn't go crazy in the fourth quarter of Game 6 and go for 50 in Game 7. So, and I like Jaylen Brown a lot. I think Jaylen Brown is, if the Celtics win this finals, man, it's going to be hard to not put Jaylen Brown amongst the top 15. I can't put him top 10. That's too high. But top 15 players in the NBA, especially with the Eastern Conference Finals trophy, I cannot go there on better than Tatum. He's got 3 straight first-team All-NBA awards. Only Luka's in recent years. I think only Luka, Jokic, and Giannis have done. I could be wrong on that. I'm almost certain that's the list of guys who have done it consecutively since 2022. It's those guys. So I respect that. I can't go there. Tim, what's your take on John Henry's comments? I did not see John Henry's comments. John Henry, the owner of the Red Sox, who Tim and I are both massive fans of. I did not see the John Henry comments. If you can fill me in, Tim, in the comments, or if I can look it on my phone, I apologize for missing that. Because if there's one thing I know about John Henry, it's the guy is, to be as wealthy as he is, man, he is cheap. That guy does not like, for whatever reason these days, spending money on big-time free agents. Let's see what John Henry's got to say. I can't believe I missed this. All right, okay, this is from the Boston Globe. This is John Henry, and I just get a Boston Globe pop-up to pay for a subscription. Okay. It says, Boston owner, this is from Sporting News MSN. I assume a somewhat reliable source. Red Sox owner says he's not selling the team and attacks fan expectations. And now it is taking me to an ad. This is really frustrating, and this is what drives me crazy about the internet sometimes, man, is these freaking subscriptions that pop up in your face. Like, dude, I just want to read what the guy said. Let's see if this will work. Okay, because I was so busy prepping for the show today, I did not catch this. Okay. So this is an email interview from I hope I'm saying her name correctly, Sarah Germano of the Financial Times. He said, quote, because fans expect championships almost annually, they easily become frustrated and are not going to buy into what the odds actually are. 1 in 20 or 1 in 30. Okay, so immediate take on that is 1 in 20 sounds about right for the average. I'd like to average it out by team, because again, you're going to have your Clevelands, your Atlanta's. Like, we don't give enough credit to the fact that Atlanta sports really don't win championships much ever. If you look at history, but here's the thing. It'd be one thing to hear it from a guy. Now, the Red Sox won as recently as 2018. That was the most recent World Series title. So it's like there's this long drought. But it'd be one thing if John Henry said, or if John Henry's the owner of a team that had gone to, like the Houston Astros, had gone to some World Series, had one illegitimate title because of the cheating, one perfectly legitimate title 2 years ago with Dusty Baker, but lost in the ALCS last year to Texas, and kind of had a bumpy start to the season. It'd be one thing, I don't know who owns the Astros, it'd be one thing if that person said, hey, like, guys, slow, like, excuse me, we're not going to win the championship every year. It does not come off well if you're John Henry. And, okay, so since that 2018 title, so you've had 19, 20, 21, 22, 20. Okay, so for the last 5 years, the Red Sox have missed the playoffs. Now, one of those years they got to the ALCS, and, if not for a gag job in Game 4, maybe they end up winning that series. But 4 of the last 5 years, they missed the playoffs. You make one of the worst trades I've ever seen in my life, and I'll never forgive the front office for that, and trading Mookie Betts to the Los Angeles Dodgers. That still haunts me to this day. And the fact that despite a stacked free agent class, Sox don't really go after anybody, of note at least. So it's all a matter of who it comes from, who the message comes from. Given that it came from John Henry, not great, buddy. I'd be like if Jerry Jones said that, right? Like, Jerry Jones doesn't spend money in free agency. Jerry Jones has become cheap with guys that are not drafted by the Cowboys. Little to no playoff success in 3 decades. And said, hey, fans, temper the expectations, guys. Slow your roll. Now, I know Dallas has the Cowboys have a longer championship drive than the Red Sox, but still. Now, Jerry goes too far in the other direction, right? This is the year we're going to win the Super Bowl. It's like, hey, Jerry, back up, dude. So, like, Jerry Jones and John Henry are like on the opposite side of the spectrum in terms of their PR approach to their fan bases. So, to answer your question, Tim, I do not love those comments at all. At all. Like, bro, spend some money on free agents. Aggressive wins in sports. It's like I remember 2 years ago. Then I'll predict Game 2 of the finals. It's like I remember 2 years ago when the Niners traded for Christian McCaffrey. And you can go back and check the tape what I said. And the Niners gave up some draft picks. Looking back now, you're like, God, what a steal by the Niners. Christian McCaffrey's offensive player of the year this year. I think he was the offensive player, of the year in this season. It's the best running back in football. But I remember back then, it was, oh my gosh, all that for a running back? Oh man, it says the Panthers won this trade. I'm like, okay, first of all, and I certainly say this now, any trade where David Tepper's involved, you probably win the trade. That's just, ask the Chicago Bears. Do business with the Carolina Panthers. You will usually come out on top there. But I remember that trade happened with the Niners and McCaffrey's brought in, and it was like, I don't know, man. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? If he stays healthy, with Kyle Shanahan makes no-name running backs viable. You give him Christian McCaffrey in that offense, I'm like, holy cow. Now, I didn't know if he was going to be this good, but I remember that trade happened. I'm like, heck yeah, the Niners won this trade. They were aggressive. They went out and got a great player, and if he stays healthy, he's going to reward them, and he has. They haven't got a Super Bowl out of it, but listen, if you're expecting the running back to win you Super Bowls, the 80s called, they want their expectations back. So aggressive wins in sports, and the fact that the Red Sox have gone back on something like they used to be kind of the Red Sox were ahead of the game on analytics. Like the Red Sox were the perfect, we are going to use them. It will hurt us if we don't use them, but we're not going to let them dictate every single decision that we make, which to me is the perfect approach to analytics. But we're going to go out and get we're going to go out and get Josh Beckett, ahead of the 2007 season when the Sox won it all. We're going to go out and get some of these pieces. Koji Uehara, bring him in from I believe he came from Japan to be our closer in 2013, win the World Series. We're going to go out and get JD Martinez ahead of 2018, which we win the World Series. And it's like they've literally gone totally. I didn't expect to go into a Red Sox rant today, but they've totally gone backwards. You trade a top 5 player in the game, worst case top 10 player in the game, in Mookie Betts to the Dodgers, get nothing in return other than Alex Verdugo, who's a Yankee today. Ay. So it is frustrating. It is very frustrating. I just don't get why it's maybe more. I forget. Mr. Henry owns some, I think, soccer club overseas. He's put more, I guess, resources into that. It's like, okay, if you're going to go on in that, nothing wrong with it. Just don't hold the Red Sox players and fans and everybody involved with the organization hostage. So please sell the team. Although it appears that is not going to be the case. So not great. But thanks for bringing that to my attention, Tim. All right, Game 2 of the finals is on Sunday. Very excited about that. I think we are absolutely going to get a more competitive basketball. And it's the same old rule in sports. Even if a team has the advantage in a 7-game series, they do what they're supposed to, win Game 1 at home. Shockingly, I haven't seen that much overreaction, which I predicted there would be at the end of yesterday's show. I said, regardless of what happens, there's going to be a huge overreaction tomorrow. I actually haven't seen that, which in that regard, kudos to the media somewhat. But almost always we get a team gets embarrassed, especially with Dallas. This is their first finals appearance for everybody in the team except for Kyrie Irving. And obviously Jason Kidd played in it, but he's never coached in it. And we get a much tighter game. Tighten up the game plan, make more shots, the whole thing. So if we can get the background music going on right now, the more intense one, because 2024 NBA Finals, Dallas Mavericks, Boston Celtics. So, this is for Dallas. They are 7.5-point underdogs. They were 6.5-point underdogs in Game 1. I put this as Bryson's bleak bet. I said I think this, because I'm big on Dallas winning this series, but I'm like, you know what? My gut tells me Boston's going to win. This is the feel-out game for Luka. The Mavs never win Game 1. The Celtics always win Game 1. But if we could show you the stats, we don't have a graphic for this, but I have this on my phone, okay? This postseason, in Game 1, the Dallas Mavericks are 1-3. The Celtics are 4-0. In Game 2s, the Mavs 3-0. The Celtics 1-2. If you look at those two losses for Boston, first one is to a Jimmy Butler-less Miami Heat team that just goes berserk from 3. Boston's not able to kind of counter that. They lose that game to the Heat. In the second series against the Cavs, this is before Donovan Mitchell went down, Cleveland walks into Boston and dog walks them. I mean, it's not even close. The physicality seemed to bother the Celtics. Tatum didn't have a very good game. Neither did Brown. It was just a mess. messy game for the Celtics at home, where they've been slightly above average since 2022. Dallas, on the other hand, has been tremendous on the road. So Luka's going to be Luka in game 2. Luka's going to be great. He may have one lesser than Luka, if you will. I don't want to get that hashtag or anything, but lesser than Luka performance at some point in the series where some of the other guys for Dallas will need to step up. Shaquille O'Neal would call them the others. But if you look at the Dallas Mavericks, who started out shooting pretty well from three-point range, they cooled off significantly. Only shot 26, if you round up 26% from three. You got PJ Washington, who's the corner three master, 0 for 3. Derrick Jones Jr. hit one to start, only took another one and missed the rest of the game. Kyrie Irving 0 for 5. Even Luka wasn't great, 4 for 12. So I think you have a very good chance of seeing the Mavericks kind of course correct. They've been a good three-point shooting team this whole playoff run. For Boston, you're going to see more out of Jayson Tatum because more is going to be asked of Jayson Tatum. It's like I defended him to start the show to say, Brown's got to. Jayson Tatum took the game manager type of role. If we think about quarterbacks like a Brock Purdy, for example, Tatum's better at his sport than Purdy is at his. We don't have to get in that discussion today. But Tatum sees, hey, a big fella Porzingis, don't get in the way of that, man. Don't stop that wave. He is rolling on both ends of the floor. They won the first quarter by 17, which helped us win the game. Jaylen Brown's getting involved in the passing lanes, is dunking over everybody on the Dallas Mavericks, okay? We got some of the other pieces for Boston, knocking down three-point shots consistently. I'm going to look for my shot from time to time, but I'm mostly going to distribute, and I'm going to be very active on the glass. I mean, Jayson Tatum, not trying to be blasphemous here, but he was looking like Dennis Rodman getting in there, grabbing the boards and creating second opportunities for the Celtics. I think you'll see Tatum's been a great rebounder, by the way, this whole playoff run, so that, you expect to continue throughout the finals. Because this will be a closer game, I don't think Porzingis is going to score 20 in 21 minutes. I don't see that coming. He'll be good in this series. I don't see that coming. Jaylen Brown should have a solid outing, but does Derek White step up? Does Al Horford do the Dallas Mavericks in their game plan of essentially letting Horford beat them? Sometimes they can get in guys' heads from time to time, even veteran players like Al Horford. What I see happening is Luka, not to this degree, but at least similar to it, approaches the start of this game, the first quarter of this game, like he approached Game 5 against the Timberwolves. Remember when Minnesota won that Game 4 in Dallas? It was a close game. It was tight. And then Luka goes insane in the first quarter against the Timberwolves. I think he scored like 20 points in the first 10 minutes of the game. Went insane. And Kyrie followed suit the rest of the game. I don't know if Luka's going to drop 20 in the first quarter. I'd say Luka gives you about 12 to 15 points in the first quarter. Gives Dallas, say, hey, we're good. You count on your best player to kind of lead the charge. Boston makes their runs, gets back in the game throughout. We go in the fourth quarter. It's tight. And Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, what they will do in 4 of the 6 basketball games, obviously I have them winning the series in 6, but 4 of the 6 games, in my opinion, will be close. I think Boston was going to have their blowout. Dallas is going to have a blowout of their own in the series. Again, outside of Indiana, Celtics have been blown out in their other first round series, or first and second round series twice, or once apiece, obviously in those rounds against the Heat and the Cavs. Boston got their blowout done last night. Dallas at some point will have their blowout win. Every other game will be tight. And in 3 of those 4 matchups, I'm going to roll with 2 of the best closers in the NBA, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, to get the job done. I think you'll see it. Luka Doncic's usage rate was 39%, as I give him the stat multiple times throughout the playoffs. When the Mavs and Luka Doncic, Luka Doncic has a usage rate 30% or below, Dallas is 10-0, and Luka still puts up excellent numbers, and the other guys obviously on Dallas step up. You'll see, I think, a similar defensive effort. Again, Boston, as great as they were, only scored 107 points. I think you'll see a similar intensity from Dallas. They'll knock down the three-point shots, and Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving will close the deal, get the job done. In honor of this being sort of the NFL, my NFL prediction approach to these finals with upset of the week, if I were a bet man, and Bryson's bleak bet. Bryson's bleak bet was last night. Ended up getting it correct. It would have been a bleak bet, but it would have been a correct one. I'm going to go with the upset of the day, I guess. Give me the Dallas Mavericks. 110-108 to beat the Boston Celtics, despite being 7.5-point underdogs. I would certainly take Dallas and the points in this game. You're going to see this is a tale as old as time in the NBA, where when a team gets embarrassed, even a significantly lesser talented team, which Dallas is not, to Boston, they're going to come out with a better effort, more sense of urgency. You don't want to go down 2-0, although Luka has overcome that deficit before in the playoffs. You're not going to have to face that type of situation. Mavericks will get it done in Game 2 and tie the series at 1 game apiece. The Boston will win Game 1. They need a Game 1 more than Dallas. You don't want to play Luka from behind because once Luka's got you, man, he's usually got you pretty good. So give me Dallas in this game, 110-108 over the Boston Celtics, and we will head to Dallas on Wednesday for Game 3. We're not actually heading to Dallas on the show, but we proverbially, the finals, will head to Dallas on Wednesday for Game 3, tied at a game apiece. I think this is going to be a fun matchup throughout the series, and this is going to be our first close game, and Luke and Kyrie will get the job done. All right, that's all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving It Up Live on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on Twitter, as well as the Carving It Up YouTube channel and the Grid Network YouTube channel. Of course, be sure to like, share, comment, and please take 2 seconds out of your day. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. Helps the channel grow exponentially. Trying to get to 5,000 subscribers. The push began earlier this week. We're trying to get to 5,000. So if you have subscribed, thank you so much. Please tell your friends about it, your family about it, everybody you know about Carving Up Live to subscribe to the channel. Just please do not tell your sleeping cat about it. It's not a good decision. Trust me, I've done that. It didn't end well. I love Neil though. He's not as mean as I'm making him out to be. He's a good cat. If you have subscribed or have not subscribed, hey, just takes a couple seconds. If you're on YouTube, hit the big red button down there and boom, you're part of the Carving Up family. Just as importantly, be sure to go subscribe to the Grid Network. That is GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere you get your favorite podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcasts. You can find us on the Grid Network, where we dare to be different. Great content over there. We'll see you on Monday's show after Game 2. I may do like I did this last year after Game 2 between the Heat and the Nuggets, which ended up being kind of a snoozer of a series outside of Games 2 and 5. But I may do like an IG live stream because it'll only be like 10:30, 10:45 at night, so it won't be crazy late to do a live reaction. So maybe on IG. So keep a lookout for that after the game. But should be a fun one. Put the graphic up again. I got Dallas 110. Dallas over the Celtics, 110-108. Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving get it done the fourth quarter, and Luka sets the tone early. Watch for that. Luka goes into one of those hot streaks, a little bit like we saw in the third quarter last night, and certainly like we saw against the Timberwolves in Game 5 in the first quarter to set the tone, settle the Mavs in, and then we got ourselves a fun basketball game for 2.5 hours. So I will see you guys on Monday. Please be sure to stay safe out there. Please be sure to take care of your physical as well as your mental health. And please be sure to contact your local state representatives and senators to demand change for gun violence in America, no matter where you lean, right, left, center. This is an issue that impacts every single one of us every single day in this country. And no matter what someone on either side of the aisle, some on one side of the aisle says it's not a problem, some on the other side says there's only one fix to the problem. Both are lies. Both are absolutely untrue. It's a massive problem that requires a number of detailed solutions to solve it. I am wearing my WNBA hoodie today. It's not just to celebrate support the WNBA, which obviously I'm doing, but just as much so, if not more so, it's an orange hoodie, which is an ode to those who have passed away because of gun violence, and a call out to those who are in positions to change laws to put us in better position to be safer in this country from said violence from happening. And so definitely keeping those people in my thoughts and prayers today. And let's call our local state representatives and senators to get this fixed, because it's something that really is really passionate about. All right. See you guys on Monday. I think we are in for a great Game 2. Mavs 110, Celtics 108. Definitely give me Mavs plus 7.5. I feel very good about that. Not if I were a bet man, good, but very good about that. See you then. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Come on, go get him, Luka. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.